welcome back. Well, that was a pretty cool look at the International Space Station as well as the European Space Agency. It's always nice when those government agencies take the time to put together some cool videos that explain who they are and what they do. We're going to dive into now a little bit of the international law behind each of those, starting with the International Space Station. And you got up on the screen here a cool graphic with a photo of it presented on the occasion of the signing of the International Space Station agreements, flags from all the countries that are partners. There's 11 partner nations, 11 European nations, 15 total partner nations. US, Russia, Canada, and Japan are the four non-European nation partners, all of whom have agreed to get together to operate a manned scientific space station in low Earth orbit. But in order to do so effectively, you need agreements between states on who's going to do what, how it's going to work, who's going to pay for what, etc. And there's really a three-layered approach to this. So the first layer is the intergovernmental agreement between the 15 partner states, last modified in 1988, and it is a multilateral international agreement. It is legally binding. A little bit weird for the U.S. because it's an executive agreement versus a treaty that's gone through Senate ratification, but we view it as legally binding. And it addresses the high-level obligations of all the partners. Sets out the idea that the partners won't exchange funds. Instead, this will be a cooperative venture. Partners will contribute infrastructure. Like, for example, our friends in Canada have contributed the Canadarm2, the robotic arm that Canada built and deployed to the ISS that's used for conducting experiments, grabbing spacecraft, etc. That's an example of infrastructure. States also contribute accommodation elements, which can be habitat for crew, lab setups, etc. But there's no exchange of money. We're all contributing stuff. And then utilization rights are based on the contribution. So the more you put into the ISS, the more use you get out of it, which means more opportunity to send your astronauts up to have them run experiments and stay for longer. That's all laid out in the layer one at the high level of the IGA. Then moving down, there's bilateral memorandums of agreement. So bilateral means between two states, and the memorandums of understanding. They are between NASA and the four cooperating space agencies, the partners. So Roscosmos for Russia, the Canadian Space Agency, the Japanese Space Agency, and then the European Space Agency, representing those 11 European nations. So these are agency-to-agency agreements. And they lay out detailed descriptions of technical responsibilities, management responsibilities. Layer 3 gets even more detailed. You can have implementing arrangements underneath those MOUs. You actually can have bartered contracts where states agree what they may pay each other for, and more technical details implemented through that third layer. We talked about ISS cooperation, the basic concept of the agreement, that everybody contributes and gets use rights based on that. Always of interest is the ISS Crew Code of Conduct, which sets out expectations for how the crews will cooperate and operate when they're in outer space, how the space agencies will manage their astronauts. And it does address criminal jurisdiction. So the general rule for states is that when their astronauts are, or their nationals really, are anywhere that isn't subject to other territorial jurisdiction like the high seas or outer space or international airspace, states get to exercise criminal jurisdiction over their own nationals. That's generally the rule here too, with a couple of minor exceptions that are detailed in the book. If there's a serious crime committed against another state party on board the ISS, and the state of the national that committed the crime is unwilling to do anything about it, there are some rights that the state of the victim might have. But in general, we're looking at each of the states exercising jurisdiction over their own nationals under that agreement. The European Space Agency is interesting because it is an example of an intergovernmental organization. So as an IGO, an intergovernmental organization, It's an association of states. It's established by treaty here the 1980 ESA or the 1975 ESA Convention that entered into force in 1980. And that treaty established this organization to pursue common aims of the member states. And because there's a treaty that sets it up this way, the IGO actually has a legal personality separate from the member states. You can enter into legally binding agreements with other intergovernmental organizations or states. So the ESA, as an intergovernmental organization, can enter into treaties, which is something that maybe you thought only sovereign states could do, but the ESA is able to because it's treaty that creates it allows it to. Started out in 1975 with 10 founding states. It was development of two previous organizations. So the European Launch Development Organization was founded in 1962 to put together a consortium of European countries to build launch capability. The European Space Research Organization, which was put together to develop satellites and conduct research, also from 1962. The European states figured it'd be more efficient to put those into one organization that both does launch and does satellite operations and manned research operations as well. And so since 1975, that's been the case. ESA today has 23 member states. Of note, it is separate from the European Union. The EU is another intergovernmental organization, but different member states. The ESA is on an international law basis, essentially in the same playing field as the EU, as an IGO. And in contrast to intergovernmental organizations, you probably hear about international organizations. Those can include non-governmental organizations as members. Things like, say, the International Committee of the Red Cross, which is an international organization, but not an IGO, and isn't able to enter into treaties. All right, that gets us through the content for today and some questions to review. I've got them listed up here on the screen. They're also in your textbook. But take a look at these, and if we were in class, we'd be talking through them. But this is a good way to test your knowledge of the material, how much you've absorbed from reading the textbook, listening to the lectures. And also, these are the sorts of questions that might show up on quizzes, midterms, and exams. So take these seriously, walk through them, and be prepared. We can discuss these at the next class session when we're all together. Well, I missed being there in person with you all this week. I enjoy the conversation, collaboration, question and answer sessions that we have. I look forward to that next week. But I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you again.